Good evening, class. We're so glad that you are joining us. We have people sitting here, and if you are local, living in the Canton, Akron, Massillon area, and you would like to join us in person, you may do so. And all you need to do is call the number, and we can give you directions and times. If you would like to join us in person for class, but if you're joining from anywhere through the internet, through our website, we're glad that you are joining us. We are looking at the tribe of Judah. And if you will look where you are watching, you will see that you can print out the notes that we are using tonight and perhaps even next week. So we are on page 3, and we are at note number 14 as we are working our way through a study of the tribe of Judah. We're beginning now to pull all of the strings together that we have looked at previously, so to get an end-time picture of God's plan for his people. And the number of his people are much larger than something. So, note number 14. In Europe, there was a group called the Saxons Euthiones, and they were believed to have been a section of Jews. Okay, and this form of the name was also rendered as Euthymakos. Now, the reason why I'm giving you these, I want you to know, whether you're at home, whether you're sitting in front of me, because sometimes doing this can be overwhelming. I just want you to pick out some things. So as you are looking at where the tribes went, they're God's people. God had a plan for the nation of Israel, the people of Israel, the children of Israel. They were his natural chosen people. And by the way, they are still his natural chosen people, even though they have lost their identity. And as our theme song for this study said, he's going to call them back. And so what I want you to see is it's a big plan, but we have a big God who's going to work and bring his big plan to completion. So it's not so much that I'm wanting you, now you may pick up some of these. Maybe if your descendants are from a certain area, you may want to do more study. That's why I've given you some of the details, so that if you on your own want to study some of these tribes, you can do so. But what I want you to see is that they have spread out literally around the globe. And God is the one, and if you don't remember anything else I say tonight, remember that God said, I will scatter you among the nations. It was his plan. And God doesn't throw out a plan without a purpose. There's always a purpose for God's plan. So these Euthymakos, well, this name of these people was found, strangely enough, on an ancient vase discovered in Italy. And we're going to look at some people who, the last name of which we kind of touched on a little bit last week, the last name with which many of the people here will be very familiar. So many Gentiles, and I would say you would think they are Gentiles, but many Gentiles among the 10 tribes nations are possibly descended from portions, and understand what I'm going to say now, from portions of Judahites who have disappeared among the nations. Now, there are parts of Yehudites, parts of the tribe of Judah, who have kept their tribal identity. And many of these are living today in where? The land of Israel. Or they are living in other pockets of place in the world, identifiable as Jewish. But there are also many, I'll do it like this, Gentiles among the 10 tribes nations who are possibly descended from portions of Judahites. Because there were also Yehudahites, members of the tribe of Judah, who also migrated. So in Numbers 26:20, and I want us to look at this scripture, because we're going to, and this is kind of an interesting, let's go to Numbers. If you are familiar with Shani and Yaakov Ferguson, and Shani is the daughter of Shira and Ari Sorka Ram, who founded Ma'oz. And I said this all to tell you that one of their sons is named Shani. So if you will look at the 20th verse of Numbers 26, and the sons of Judah, according to their families, were of Shelah, the family of the Shelonites. So Shelah was a son of Judah who gave rise to the Shelonite clan, because within the tribes there were clans. And that I do want you to remember. Within every tribe there were clans below the tribe. And one of these was the Shalani or the Salani, and the reason why I say sometimes it could be pronounced Shalani because it would have a shin. Other times it could be pronounced Salani because it would just use the sin letter. It's the same letter, and it has to do with what? Where the dot is placed. And I just tell you, the dot on the right-hand side of shin is shin. And we know that because if you were in Hebrew class, you know the reason. Sin is never right. So you will always know that the dot goes on the shin. So these Shalani appeared in the region of Belgium. And of course, you know Belgium is very close to France. And they appeared then in the region of Belgium as the Salian Franks. Okay. And these people commingled with the Sicambri people. And they together, so they just commingled with each other, and together, guess what they did? They invaded Gaul, which is the area of France. So they got together, and they invaded France. Now the Frisians is a Germanic. So I want you to see where they're going. They're in roughly the same area, right? Belgium, Gaul, France, Germany, they're in that area. They're still coming in close together. They're a Germanic ethnic group of the coastal region of the Netherlands. So now we're seeing a migration into the area of Holland. And also northwestern Germany. So you're seeing they're going what? They're going in a westward movement. Their migrations here are westward. And they are descended in part from both Phares, this is very interesting, son of Judah. So they're from the Phares or Perez, same name, same person, of Judah, son of Judah. And, now see, you're going to see a commingling here, and Peresh of Manasseh. Now, as these people migrated and they began to settle close to each other, by this time, many of them do not know their tribal identities. Some have kept them, some have not. So they might have mingled with these peoples. They had something in common without realizing who they were. Now, descendants of Phares' son, Hamal, left their imprint on the German city of Hamel, Hameln, Hamel, which is something that is very unique as they're migrating. They put their names on everything. How many of you noticed how many times in their migrations they named either places or rivers? We're putting our stamp on this. How many of you know that was God's plan? That has allowed us to trace the migration of the tribes. For example, we know that the tribe of Dan was at some point, there was a part of the tribe of Dan in the area of Germany. Why? Because they put their stamp there. This is the Danube. So we're seeing this, and that is why we can do some of what we're doing here. Now that Hameli tribal group were among the Anglo-Saxon invaders of England. So now we see you have descendants of Phares, Perez. They're in Germany. They've left their imprint on Germany. And now they joined among the Anglo-Saxon invaders of England. So they helped in the invasion of England. The Cheshawari people derived their name from Hezron or Hetzron, another son of Phares. And it's either Phares, P-H-A-R-E-Z, or Perez, it's the same. So you have another people descending from another son of Phares. Now, Irish tradition says that descendants of Zara of Judah were among Ireland's, I-R-E-L-A-N-D, Ireland's early settlers. And somewhere in your notes, you should have a chart somewhere in your notes that will give you the Zara line of Judah. Somewhere, probably very early on, I gave you, it says the tribes of Israel. We had all the tribes, and we actually took down through the tribe of Judah, and we went through the Zara and the Phares line. And you will see that there are descendants, and one of the descendants of Judah in the Zara line is Chalcol. Sometimes it will be listed as Chalcol, same individual. And he's the one that is specifically mentioned as having gone into the area of Ireland. Now, an ancestor of the Scottish Gaels and ancient Irish was called Iar, I-A-R. And that name equals Yair, or Jair. And obviously, those of you who have taken Hebrew know that there is no J in Hebrew, right? That's why Jehovah is not Jehovah in Hebrew, it's Yahweh. So, which is the actual Hebrew pronunciation. We sometimes have anglicized it to what? Yahweh. Same, but there's no J. So that name equals Yair of Judah, the tribe of Judah. Now, what is significant about this is that the people of Judah, the Yehudahites, were referred to as Iari by the Assyrians. And I just remind you that when Assyria, we know that Assyria carried off the 10 northern tribes. They also carried off a part of other tribes in Judah. Remember, they took some of the unfortified cities of Judah in the southern kingdom of Judah, right? And they exiled them too. So the people of Judah were referred to as Iari by the Assyrians. Now the Iari of Ireland settled among the Nemedi peoples. Now, so we have to look here a little bit, because these people are linked to Peresh of Manasseh. So just as Yair of Judah had been situated east of the Jordan with the clan of Machir from Manasseh, and we can prove this if we look in 1 Chronicles 2:23, that will give us a breadcrumb to see what happened there. So if we go to 1 Chronicles 2:23, it said, Geshur and Syria took from them the towns of Yair with Kenath and its towns, 60 towns. Now, all these belong to the sons of Machir, the father of Gilead. So what we're seeing here is that there was, prior to the exile, the Iari of Judah had been situated east of the Jordan. Some of them went east of the Jordan with the clan of Machir from Manasseh. So what are we seeing happen? What's significant now that we're seeing happen? As they migrate, what's happening? They're coming back into association with one another. So the Iari, and that, just forget that, descended from, we know they're descended from Yair of Machir of Ireland, descended from Judah. And they settled in Ireland, and guess who they settled with? Among the people descended from Manasseh. Let me ask you a question. Do you think that was just accidental? Or do you think that was a part of this overall plan? God scattered them, but he started bringing it together too. And it's an interesting note that Yair, though born to Segub, son of Hetzron, son of Pharez, son of Judah, he was actually counted with Manasseh. He was actually counted with the tribe of Manasseh. And the reason is because they intermarried. Any question on Yair of Judah and the tribe of Manasseh? Okay. The symbol of Ireland is the harp, and what happened is I left a blank space and I had run all of your notes before I remembered to put in the pictures, and I was not going to waste any paper by redoing them. So I will just show you the symbol of Ireland is the harp, and I'm going to put it up to the TV camera, and I know people sitting out here can't see it, so I will pass them around. This is the flag of Eastern Ireland. And for the people sitting in front, it looks like when you go to Israel, you can buy, if you have the mullah, because they're highly expensive, a harp of David, and it looks just like this. And David being of what tribe? Judah. Joy, let you come up here. And then if you wait here, I'll give you another one. This is the Great Seal of the Irish Free State. Again, a David's harp. So a harp is traditionally associated with the house of David. Why? Why is the harp associated with the house of David? David played a harp. Remember the song, Little David, Play on Your Harp? And he was the king of Israel. Now David was of the tribe of Judah. And I said the harp also appears on the Great Seal of the Irish Free State. That tells us something. What does it tell us? That somewhere in the minds of these people, they have remembered something. There are just some things in their history they've remembered. They may have lost a great deal of their identity, but there's something. There's an affinity for the harp. There's an affinity for something else that we're going to get into. And the harp also appears on the flag of Eastern Ireland. And it was an important symbol. Now, Zara, or Zara, was the brother of Phares, or Perez. You'll see it spelled different ways. And both of these twins were born to Judah from Tamar. And so if we look at Genesis 38, I know we have people that may be joining us for the first time, and this is familiar to most of you sitting in front of me. It may not be familiar with somebody maybe just tuning in tonight. So if you will go to the 38th chapter of Genesis and the 27th verse. And some of you, and I would suggest if you are not familiar with this, that you go back and read the whole 38th chapter of Genesis, because it will set the setting for this. But it said, now it came to pass, verse 27, at the time for giving birth, that behold, twins were in her womb. And it's speaking of Tamar. And so it was when she was giving birth that the one put out his hand. Very important. So that it was time for the twins to be born, and one of the twins puts his hand out. And the midwife took a scarlet thread. That meant the hand was out for a while, right? It wasn't just booming in, back in the womb. And the midwife took a scarlet thread and bound it on his hand, saying, and this becomes so significant, this one came out first. Then it happened, as he drew back his hand, that his brother came out unexpectedly, and she said, how did you break through? In other words, here's your brother had his hand stuck out. Now you somehow have broken through, and he is fully born. And she said, how did you break through? This breach be upon you. You breached your brother. Therefore, his name was called Perez, which, by the way, means breach. Afterward, his brother came out who had the scarlet thread on his hand, and his name was called Zara. Okay. Now, so what happens is a dispute arose regarding who was rightly the firstborn. Who was the right firstborn son of Judah? Because all the other sons of Judah are deceased at this point. So, firstborn was so very important. So it mattered who was the firstborn. And as a result of Phares or Perez being recognized as the firstborn, Zara's descendants, and we believe more than likely left Egypt. Now, they were not always in bondage in Egypt, so I need to remind you that there was a period of time where we know Joseph was obviously well regarded. He was second only to Pharaoh in Egypt. His family was given some of the prized land in Egypt. They were given great freedom until there arose a Pharaoh whom not Joseph didn't remember Joseph. That's why, by the way, side note, that's why it's so important that we keep history alive. The good, the bad, the ugly, so we can learn from it, but to maintain our history so that we don't remember those things that were so important in the founding of our nation.
Amen.
But what happened? there. Then, so they left. And they retained their belief that Zara, Z-A-R-A, or Zara, it's spelled differently, it's the same thing. But they held their belief that Zara was truly the firstborn son. Because why? Because he got his hand out there first, and there was a scarlet thread put around his hand, and the midwife had declared what? This one came out first. So that belief obviously was passed down from generation to generation, much like stories have been passed down. I mean, we weren't around 3 generations ago, right? But we've had stories that were passed down. I remember sitting and my grandfather telling me stories that happened. I wasn't around 200 years before, but they were passed on, and you remember those stories. This would have been one that definitely would have been passed on. Why? Because they felt they were what? Robbed of the right of firstborn, primogeniture. So a symbol of Northern Ireland is a scarlet hand superimposed upon the Star of David. If you were in the class for a long time, you know it. But this is a symbol of Northern Ireland. And this is the flag of Eastern Ireland. And it has a Star of David. And I would simply ask you, is there any other reason for the nation of Eastern Ireland to have a Star of David on their flag with a red hand on it? I don't think so. There has to be a connection to something in their history that becomes the flag of Eastern Ireland. And this scarlet hand superimposed on the Star of David is universally, everywhere. People see that and they know it represents this tribe of Judah. There's no other thing that you can reference but the tribe of Judah. And we know that because the Star of David appears on what other flag? The flag of the nation of Israel. So, obviously, there is a connection. Another ancient and traditional emblem of Northern Ireland was, and still is, a red hand circled by a scarlet cord. And you will see that in many of the heraldry in Ireland, and you see it also in some of the other countries in that area, but you will definitely see it throughout. Sometimes there are family, clans in Ireland, and they'll have the Star of David, or they'll have the hand with the scarlet cord. Now, here's where I really need you to harness your brains, because I need to handle some things. In dealing with Irish history, and I'm just going to ask some of you, how many of you have some Irish ancestry? Okay, quite a few of us. Irish ancestry. Well, in dealing with Irish history, one must remember when doing so, much of Irish history is mixed with myth and legend. Now, we don't dismiss that. And there are times when it is, and I'm going to be real honest with you, quite difficult to come to an exact conclusion as to exact history. You want to come to this conclusion, but there is such a blending of myth and legend with the history. The reason why I'm saying that, and I'm going to, and I'll show you something. Because I know I have. There are, and I told you can get this, you have all these kings, high kings of Ireland. Okay. And you can look at these and think, oh, okay. And the bottom line is, I'm going to be real honest with you, some are and some are legend. And some are real people and some may or may not be. Now that doesn't mean we throw it away. This is something that I printed out. It's kind of interesting because it says Queen Elizabeth II is a descendant of King David. And actually this particular genealogy takes it back to Adam. How many ever heard of Adam? Adam. And then Seth, Enos, Canaan, Mahalalel, and it goes down. Now where it gets interesting, and I'm just going to do this, and then somehow it jumps over and you get King David through Solomon. So they're saying that she is descended from Adam, aren't we all? But through Seth, and by the way, any of us who are living, that's how it is. Why? Well, because Abel was murdered by Cain, and Cain went off somewhere. There obviously is a Cain lineage. And then it goes through Solomon, Rehoboam, it goes all through the kings. Now here's where it gets really interesting, and I'm not going to go there yet. I'm just going to say that it says she was descended from Zedekiah. Now here's where it gets interesting. Remember I said you've got to understand a lot of it is myth and legend. And I'm just going to say this, and we're just going to, we can set it, just take it off to the side like a sidebar, leave it there. We're going to get here. Because she says she is related to Tia Tephi, who her genealogy says was a daughter of Zedekiah. Just kind of write a little thing and put it off to the side. We will deal with that as an interesting part of what I just said. So in studying Irish history, what we must remember and realize is that Ireland consisted of 5 parts. In other words, Ireland was divided into 5 regions. And somewhere I have a map of the 5 regions of Ireland, and I don't know if I brought that from my office or not. I don't see them, but believe me, if I didn't bring it tonight, I will bring it at another night. Yes, I have it. This is the map of ancient Ireland, and it's in 5 different colors. And as you can see, here's a kind of a pinkish and light blue and yellow and a darker bluer purple and green. So here's, when you get into Irish history, here's what you need to realize. There were 5 regions of Ireland, and every region had a king over each part. So at any part in the history, you had 5 kings reigning at the same time. So that's why I'm saying there can be crossovers and all sorts of things, and we need to be aware of this. Now, it is thought that the hand represents Zara of Judah, and I believe that's possible. Father of Calcol, who according to legend sailed to Ireland and founded Ulad, which is Ulster, which is Northern Ireland. So let me say this about that. I believe that it is possible, obviously, that Calcol, was a descendant of Judah. I have no problem with that. I have always believed that there is a kernel of truth in legend if you keep searching. And believe me, I have found much legend that I have discovered that definitely had a great deal of truth in it. For example, if you look at an area in the peninsula of Spain, you have a place that's called the Pillars of Hercules. And they'll talk all about Hercules. Now, we know that Hercules is myth and legend. But could it be possible that we know that Samson was of the tribe of what? Dan. And so as that tribe went, wouldn't they tell stories about a famous ancestor from their tribes who asked God for strength and said, put one of my arms on one pillar and one on the other, and pulled down the temple of a pagan god. So they travel and they're going to pass on this story. So I don't care what they call it, Hercules, Pillars of Hercules. What probably happened is they were telling the story of Samson. And now here's what's interesting about that. It's real close to an area called Zaragoza. And we know the tribe of Dan and Judah are obviously always connected in their migrations. They're always going to be found together as they migrate. Again, is that accidental? No. It's part of God's plan. So I believe the symbol is a valid reference to the birth of Zara. I believe that the scarlet hand and the scarlet thread are definitely hearkening back to the Zara branch of the tribe of Judah. And I believe that the Zarahites claimed that their ancestor was the firstborn. Now, from Ireland, the Scots migrated to what is known today as Scotland. And guess what? The red hand appears in the coat of arms, and I will get into that when we talk about Skoda and all that. We're going to talk about it again, but I want you to always keep in mind a kernel of truth, but it's difficult sometimes to separate myth and legend from truth. So, and guess what? The red hand appears in the coat of arms of several of the old families of Scotland and clan chiefs of Scotland. So the McBains, the McNeils, the McNaughton, McPherson, or some of us who were raised in a certain denomination, has great meaning for us, McPherson, McDonald, and others. Now, what is interesting when you look at Scottish, Mac in Scottish means the same as Ben and Bar in Hebrew, son of. Son of Ferson, son of Neil, son of Bain, son of Not. Now, why that is important is there has to be some kind of custom, right? That when you are naming families, you are naming them son of, son of, son of. One of the interesting things that happened after the formation of the modern state of Israel, there were many Jewish people, Yehudahites, who didn't have last names. They didn't have last names. Well, when you're forming a nation and you're going to give citizenship to people and you're going to do, so well, you have to have names. I mean, you have, if you're going to, for example, if you have a passport, you can't have a passport in one name, can you? You have to have a first name and a last name. You don't have to have a middle name, but you have to have your full name on your passport, and that includes a first name and a last name. So in the formation of Israel, how many have met some Jewish people, and their names are so-and-so Ben something. Sometimes it's Ben Israel. They think, I don't know, we'll just call us Ben Israel. Some Ben Ami. We had a guide one time in I'm trying to think which it was, 1994. Her name was Jane Ben Ari. Her father's name was Ari, Ben Ari. Because they had to have a last name. So they used that. Now think about this. If that is your custom, I am Cal Cole, Benzar. Well, you move in and then you begin to blend with other people and you pick up other languages, but you still keep the tradition so that your last names when you move and migrate into Scotland is Macpherson, son of Ferson, son of Neil. My father's name is Neil, so I'm Mac Neil, I'm son of Neil. And so you see something happening, don't you? You see a same pattern. Again, these are little breadcrumbs helping us trace the tribes. So for hundreds of years, Ireland, especially the region of Northern Ireland, served as the major producer of linen. And it was some of the highest quality linen in the world. In much of the world today, Irish linen is still highly regarded. And there are certain Irish catalogs where you can get linen blouses and linen shirts they are really prized and very expensive. And linen was a mainstay of Northern Ireland. Now, what is interesting about this is that it is a possible connection with Judah that is found through the descendants of Shelah of Judah and his son. So if we look at 1 Chronicles 4:21, so if we go to 1 Chronicles, again, we're going to look at some more breadcrumbs. So 4:21. 1 Chronicles 4:21. The sons of Shelah, the son of Judah, were the father of Lecca, Laada, the father of Marishah, and the families of the house of the linen workers of the house of Ashby. Now, let me ask you a question. In the past, usually, sons would do what? Would follow in the path of the fathers. If you go back, if they did linen work, guess what? You did linen work. How many? Even today, not as prevalent, but even today you see that pattern. I'm thinking of two places where I grew up. I was born here, but I grew up in Cambridge. There are two places that are very familiar if you've ever visited Cambridge. One of them is Kennedy's Bakery. The other is Theo's. And they are now on their 4th generation running that business. And they're well known. Actually, there is another restaurant, Francis Family Restaurant I think they're on their 3rd generation. Because the parents did it, the grandparents did it, and it passed on. And there's someone still carrying that on. Sad thing in my own family, my cousin has the family farm that was given to our ancestor by George Washington when he left the Revolutionary Army. And that's what he got for serving. That land in Cambridge, farmland. Unfortunately, no one in the next generation wants that. But think of from 1777 to now, that land has been passed down and passed down and passed down. So that's what's happening. So obviously they were producers of linen. And guess what? You get Shelah, the Shelonites, when they move into Ireland, guess what they're doing? They're linen workers. Now, numerous families throughout the United Kingdom have an uncertain tradition that they descend from the tribe of Judah. And I said you may want to check out the genealogy of Queen Elizabeth II, and thus also to be King Charles III. And if you want to look at that genealogy chart that I referenced earlier, I will have it out if you want to look at it. But don't, look at it, but don't remove it because it's pretty big, and I don't have to do about 20 copies, but you feel free to look at it at any time, and I'll keep it out so if you want to look at it. Now, regarding the part of the genealogy where the current British monarch is listed as being descended from a union between Tia Tephi and Prince Haramon, also known as Aramon, a prince of the Scarlet Thread, and that's what it will say. Here's where I need to clear up something, and I am not averse to coming to you and saying, I have done research and I believed it was true, and then went back and heard, hey, you need to recheck this because it just may not be as clear as it looks. And here's what happened. One or two people had done research, notice quotes, and they put this out, that Tia Tephi was a daughter of Zedekiah, and she was spirited out by the prophet Jeremiah and his scribe Baruch. They went to Egypt, and then from there he took both daughters of Zedekiah, and one remained in Egypt, one went on with him to Spain, and then into Ireland, where she was united in marriage with Aramon, Tia Tephi, Aramon of the Zara line, and she was of the Perez line, and then the lights. Now here's what I've discovered. One or two people put that out, and about 50 researchers believed it without checking it out, and they just copied it. So you look at it and say, wow, I've looked at 50 different, not 50, but there were probably 50 other people who took it, and they put it in their research, and what happened was that you look at it, and certainly if you look at it, if you look at 30 different sources, most people would believe, well, if 30 different people are saying the same thing, so it must be true. Okay. Well, if you look at a listing of the kings of Ireland, I had those here. I think I should, yeah, here. And I told you, you can get these from Pastor Scott's website. If you look at a listing of the kings of Ireland, according to the Annals of the Four Masters, or Foundations of Knowledge in Ireland is the English, and the history of Ireland, it's Foras Fisa Ar Erin, which is the foundation of knowledge on Ireland. You will not, N-O-T, find a listing for a King Haramon or Aramon in either listing, and here's the key, within the proper time frame. Okay? Because if you're talking about a King Aramon that marries Tia Tephi, it's going to have to be after 586 BC, right? Because that's the fall of Judah. That's when Zedekiah was executed. Remember, they killed all of his male heirs, his sons, and the minute they killed them, they blinded him, so that the last thing he saw was the execution of his sons. So we're talking about 586 BC, And then, by the way, he is taken into captivity and he dies in captivity. Now, there was another king of the Pharez line in Judah who was also taken into captivity, and I've got it here. We'll get to it. He's released from prison. How many know he would have had descendants, which would still be in the Davidic line? So that's why I'm a firm believer of, check me out, look for it yourself. You're not going to find a King Haramon in either listing, either in the Annals of the Four Masters or the Foundation of Knowledge of the History of Ireland in that time frame. Number two, aside from the fact that there is a problem with the name Tia, and it can be spelled either T-E-A or T-I-A, Tia Tephi, it is impossible to find historical evidence for one person, one single person named Tia Tephi. Many researchers believe that Tia and Tephi are two different people. And they believe that there was a Tia and they believe that there was a Tephi. But neither of those two individuals was ever a daughter of King Zedekiah. Now, the genealogy gives the birth date of this Tia Tephi as 565 BC, which is, guess what? 20 years after the fall of Jerusalem, which would be 20 years after Zedekiah was taken into Babylonian captivity. So he couldn't have fathered a daughter then, right? He's in captivity. And if he did, she's not going to be spirited by the prophet Jeremiah out of the country. The official genealogy chart only goes back as far as 916 AD. That's the official one that you'll find on the royal website. Number three, in looking at lists of Irish kings, one must realize that ancient Ireland had 5 territorial divisions, and each territorial region had their own king. Number 4, another legend said that Tia was not Zedekiah's daughter. Now, Gathalus was a descendant of Calcol, son of Zara. And he married Skoda. So you have Gathalus marrying Skoda, and he's a descendant of Calcol. He's a son of Zara. And Tia Tephi was their daughter. And King Haramon, who is called their son, because he is called, because they say Skoda was obviously royalty, and their son was actually their son-in-law. Okay, so, because, in other words, if you're looking at, remember what I said, it's really hard to separate myth and legend from history. So what they're saying is that King Haramon, who in the genealogy appears as the son of Gathalus and Skoda, really was their son-in-law who married Tia Tephi. And I'm just telling you the truth. If you want to go search this out, be my guest, but finding historical evidence for this is very difficult to verify. So, here's what we need to ask ourselves then. And I'm trying to look at my time here, and I'm not going to do it tonight, so I'm going to stop here. So next week, I'm going to tell you what we do know about the daughters of Zedekiah. Now, I do want you to know this. God said, I didn't say it, God said it. He said, David will not want for a man to sit on the throne. Did he not? Yes. So is God telling the truth? Yes. Yes. So then, but that doesn't mean we have to make up something to make that, but it's true. So knowing that that is true, and I will tell you, even though we don't have enough time to get there tonight, it is true, absolutely true, that there is a descendant of David. And I'm not averse to believing it could be, but I think there's a great deal of royalty sitting on thrones. So we're going to find out. I will tell you this, were there two daughters of Zedekiah? Yes. Did Jeremiah take the daughters of Zedekiah out of Judah? Yes. Why? The Bible says he did. Did he take them to Egypt? Yes, he did. Why? The Bible says he did. Did they end up in Ireland? Yes, because there is evidence for that. And what we're going to find out next week is that there are two purported grave sites for Jeremiah. Understand this, if he never made it to Ireland, there wouldn't be two. There wouldn't be any, because he never made it there. That the fact that they're arguing over which of the two he's buried in lets us know, obviously he made it there, and he did die in Ireland. So, but we're going to try to meander our way through and grab the kernels of truth out of the history of Ireland. I hope that you enjoyed the teaching tonight. I think that more than anything else, this study for me is just building faith. Faith in the truth of God's word, faith in the fact that if God says, I'm going to do this for you, look what he said to his people. And he is still working that plan. And if you think he doesn't know what's happening in your life, he knows where every single individual from the Israelites are right now. Every descendant, he knows their names, he knows where they are, and he knows where they're going to end up. And if that's true, think about any problem you and I face. He already knows from the beginning the end of that. We can trust him. And just maybe he has a very special plan for every one of us sitting here tonight. And you at home, don't forget, if you have a prayer request, you can call it in, you can send it in. If you want to give in response to the teaching that you have received, please do so. And again, you can drop it off, you can mail it in, you can go on the website. There are a lot of different ways you can do that. I would love to hear from you what this study is meaning for you. And I would love to hear from you. And if you're sitting here and you want to give in response to the teaching received, remember we have a Joash chest. You can just put your offering envelope in the Joash chest. We are looking forward to joining you again next week as we go further into looking at the tribe of Judah, the tribe from which our Lord came. And he is, by the way, he is the rightful one to sit on the throne. And I don't know about you, but I am looking forward to that day. So have a great week, and be careful for the wind doesn't blow you away tonight. And we'll be looking at you again next week.